Boundaries. Paradoxically, even though the family members communicate poorly, its members are nonetheless highly connected emotionally and through denial of and loyalty about keeping the secret. Often one or more members are dysfunctional in some capacity, so other members take on their roles. Everyone learns to mind everyone else's business one way or another. What results is a group of family members who are enmeshed, fused, or who have invaded or even overtaken another person's boundaries and personal space. The boundaries of healthy and individuated people schemically look something like this. So there's a little thing with circles here. Okay. So this is a casual acquaintance. This is a closer friendship. This is intimate relationship. Okay, healthy relationships are often flexible, allow the fulfillment of some of another's needs and rights, and support the mental, emotional, spiritual growth of each person. These are healthy relationships. While they are often intimate and close, their intensity has a flexible ebb and flow that respects each member's needs and allows each to grow as individuals. By contrast, the enmeshed or fused relationship may schematically look something like this. When it's too meshed with no boundaries, your relationships. Maybe that's why I feel like I can't breathe a lot. Like, I claustrophobic. Or in the case of troubled or dysfunctional families, looks like this. So, the big one is the parent, the alcoholic or troubled parents, and that the one that's more in control. Then there's the codependent, and then the child, like that, how enmeshed they are. These enmeshed or fused relationships are generally unhealthy, closed, rigid, and tend to disencourage the fulfillment of one another's needs and rights. They tend not to support the mental, emotional, and spiritual growth of each person. Little or no ebb and flow of closeness and distance is allowed. This case histories of Karen and Barbara illustrate such unhealthy and fused boundaries. To survive in each such an enmeshed relationship, we generally use several defenses such as denial of the secret, our feelings, and of our pain, and projection of our pain onto others. Attacking, blaming, and rejecting. However, when we leave the shame-based relationship, even though we may have survived and are still surviving, such a shame-based and codependent stance of fear, guilt, denial, and attacking does not tend to work for us. When we leave an unhealthy relationship and try to use the same ways and defenses in relating that we used to survive in the unhealthy one, those ways and defenses don't tend to work well in a healthy relationship. The shame-based person is nearly always enmeshed in some way with one or other people. While we are dysfunctional, shame-based relationship, we may feel like we are losing our mind, going crazy. When we try to test reality, we are unable to trust our senses, our feelings, and our reactions. Compulsive behavior and repetition compulsion. When we live our life in a shame-based and codependent stance, focusing in ordinary on others, we naturally feel as though something is missing. That we are somehow incomplete, we are unhappy, tense, empty, distressed, feel bad, and or numb. But to be real seems threatening to us. We try to be real with others, and we too often were rejected or punished for it. And so to be real again, to express our feelings and to get our needs met, seems too scary. Besides, we are not used to doing this, so we defend ourselves against realizing our real needs and feelings. So it's basically a picture, but the shame tends to go, shame, distress, internal defenses, alienation of true self. It's a circle. Temporary relief, self remains incomplete, shame again, and it goes around again. But our real self, now alienated and hidden from us, has an innate desire and energy to express itself. Secretly, we want to feel its aliveness and creativity. Held in for so long, stuck in such an approach-avoidance dilemma, it's our only way out, as though a specific form of negative compulsive behavior that has worked for us in the past, even though we may get only a glimpse of our true self by doing so. Such compulsions range across a wide spectrum of possible behaviors, from heavy use of alcohol or other drugs, to short-term, intense relationships, to trying to control another person. It may involve overeating, oversexing, overworking, overspending, or even overattending self-help group meetings. This compulsive behavior tends to be negative in some way, such as self-destruction or other destruction. It may produce crisis as a side effect, or may precipitate as crisis for self and for others. When we can control the behavior to some extent, we have some degree of willpower over it. That we may even plan it. It often occurs impulsively and automatically, as if by reflex. When we thus behave compulsively, we usually get temporary relief from tension, suffering, and numbness, even though we might feel some shame about it. And even though of short duration, we feel alive to a degree. However, later, we often feel shameful and incomplete. This type of behavior has been called repetition compulsion. It comes about from unsolved internal conflict that we carry in our unconscious mind, the place within us of which we are usually not aware. A way out. From the recovery experience of hundreds of thousands of people, we know that there's an effective way out of this constricting and binding effect of shame. To tell the story of our trauma and pain to safe and supportive others. What we expose and share is our child within, our true self, with all its weaknesses and all of its strengths. We cannot heal our shame alone. We need others to help us heal ourselves. They validate our predicaments and our pain, and they accept us as we are. And when we are here, others tell us their stories and share their shame. We help them to heal their shame. Doing so helps us as well. By such sharing and listening, we begin to practice the principles of compassion and unconditional love. Such sharing and storytelling is held and seen countless times each day, whether in self-help groups, group therapy, individual therapy, or between intimate friends. Blocks to healing. As we begin to heal our shame, we may encounter stumbling blocks within us that prevent us from going ahead with our healing. These blocks include negative attitudes that may have about ourselves. 2. Memories of facial expressions or other images in people that made us feel shameful in the past that we now see in other people and possibly in ourselves. 3. Overshadowing or binding by shame of some important areas in our lives. These areas may include the following. 1. One's feelings. 2. Our healthy drives, sexuality, aggression, hunger, and need for intimacy. Our needs, our thoughts, especially bad thoughts. Bad. Age regression. For example, any time that we feel hurt by an authority figure, such as one of our parents, we may feel anger. However, the anger quickly changes into or is covered up by feeling shame. We may also begin to feel fearful and confused. Because of these feelings, we may begin to feel overwhelming, as though we might lose control. We quickly suppress all of them and become numb. During this, and for several minutes after, we become dysfunctional in varying degrees. This whole process may take just a few seconds, but we may feel as though we are helpless little children again. Such an occurrence has called age regression, or reversion to earlier severe survival mechanism. Tom is a 45-year-old attorney and father of 2. He tells group therapy of his discovery of regression to a younger age. It took me 45 years to see what happened when my father put me down. Last month, when I visited him and my mother, within 5 minutes of arriving, my father tried to put me down by making a joke of my being an attorney. He said, "Here comes the shyster lawyer," and then looked at me, my mother, brother, and sister to see if we'd laugh with him. With the help of the group, I've learned how I reacted. I suddenly felt confused, helpless, and angry, as though I were 5 years old again. I hung my head and went numb. It was a horrible feeling that I have hundreds of times growing up, and I still have it when he does that. I have it around people who try to tease me or judge me. What I'm realizing is that by doing that is one of the main ways of handling conflict or tension in my family. Where are these ants coming from? swear. He tries to make a joke or tease me or put me down whenever he is in conflict with. Whomever he is in conflict with. His other way was to leave the person, abandon them so that the conflict was never handled. So I'm practicing recognizing when I age regress and taking deep breaths and walking around to gather my sanity so I can deal with him or people like him. I'm setting limits with my father now when he does that. I'm saying to him, I don't like it when you joke about my career like that. I won't visit you anymore if you keep doing that. Handling age regression. We can begin to break free of shame bind or an age regression by becoming aware of it. When it occurs, we recognize it. And when we recognize it, it takes several slow, deep breaths. Doing this will relieve us of our confusion, numbness, and dysfunction, and allow us increased awareness of what is happening so that we can better take control of ourselves. Instead of being paralyzed, confused, and dysfunctional, we pull ourselves right back into our true self, and we continue to function as our true self by getting up and walking around and observing reality around us. If we are with safe and supportive people, we can begin to talk about how we feel. We may also leave the person who is mistreating us. Even if we don't leave, we gain comfort by grasping our car keys as a symbol of our ability to get away. We also discover age regression may even be advantageous to us. It tells us immediately that we are being mistreated, or we are being reminded of being mistreated. And when we know that we are being mistreated, we can explore ways of taking action to remedy the situation and to avoid the mistreatment. We know that there is a way out. We are beginning to heal our child within. Okay? Chapter 7, the role of stress, the post-traumatic stress disorder, will be discussed next. Love you guys, you're good enough, and I'm healing and we're healing together. I'm proud of you and myself.